Israel has carried out an attack on the Hamas leadership in the Qatari capital, Doha, on Tuesday. Israeli officials confirmed the strike targeted senior Hamas officials, further widening its campaign against the militant group. It is unclear whether there were any casualties at this time. However, a senior group leader told media organization Al Jazeera that the Hamas leadership delegation survived the attack.
Oh my God.
An international activist group seeking to deliver aid to Gaza on a flotilla says one of its boats was hit by what it believes was a drone while docked in Tunisia. The lead vessel, called the Family Boat, was carrying the most famous members of the flotilla, including Swedish activist Greta Thunberg and former Barcelona mayor Ada Colau. The convoy aims to break the Israeli blockade of famine-stricken Gaza. Crew members said the attack will not deter them from their mission.
تحذيراتنا ما زالت متواصلة. تقريبا نحن في اللحظات الأخيرة لتحضيرات أسطول الصمود. سويعات قبل الانطلاق. نأكد لكم اللي الإرادات أقوى والعزائم أكبر في اتجاه كسر الحصار.
Tunisian authorities denied claims that a drone struck the boat, but videos circulating online show a flaming projectile hitting the front deck of the vessel. The voyage comes months after a smaller flotilla similarly tried to deliver aid to Gaza before it was illegally intercepted by Israeli authorities in international waters, who called the effort a publicity stunt.
Сьогодні 9 вересня, 10:40, стався обстріл.
At least 21 people have been killed after a Russian glide bomb hit a village in Ukraine's eastern Donetsk region, according to President Volodymyr Zelensky. The bomb, which hit the village of Yarova less than 10 kilometers from the front line, killed elderly people who were queuing to receive their pensions, while 21 others were injured, according to the regional governor. Zelensky condemned the strike as a brutally inhumane attack, urging the international community to increase sanctions on Russia. The city of Zaporizhia was struck with Shahed drones, leaving several people injured and setting homes on fire. One local resident described the scene.
Вчера я вышел, и там горит после взрыва, и дождь пустился. Я в подвал забежал. Спрятался. Второй буквально там через 5 минут. 6 числа нас вот тут бомбило, там сережки дома бомбило, соседа жену убила. Тут тетя Танька в больницу попала, соседка.
Meanwhile, the central part of Kherson was also attacked overnight, causing a fire that burnt down trade kiosks in the city's market. A total of 84 drones were launched overnight on Ukraine, of which, according to its armed forces, 60 were downed.
It's a signal that speaks volumes about Europe's intentions in the Arctic region. Last week, the European Commission proposed doubling its financial support for Greenland as part of the next European budget. This area around the North Pole has become a focal point of global commercial and geopolitical interests. The melting of the ice caused by global warming is reshuffling the political landscape and could bring Europe closer to Asia.
Trade route in the north is much more convenient from Beijing to Rotterdam rather than the classic one that passes through the Malacca Strait and the Suez Canal and the Gulf of Aden, which is, of course, is 30 to 50% longer. It takes 14 to 20 days more than the Arctic route.
But this route is not as open as it seems. 53% of this northern sea route runs alongside Russia, which is seeking to extend its exclusive economic zone. Additionally, this region is home to the Russian Northern Fleet. Since the Kremlin's invasion of Ukraine, tensions in the Arctic have escalated significantly. In order to defend its interests, the EU therefore cannot solely rely on member states in the region.
Think about underwater infrastructure, such as fiber optical cables. It's easy to understand why being present in the region is so important. And think about Greenland or other territories in the regions as platforms that make it possible to establish the so-called system of early warnings or even to deploy aerial, naval, or even robotics units directly in the Arctic.
The EU is seeking to strike a balance between commercial openness and strategic protection, but access to the Arctic's hydrocarbons is also at stake for the bloc. According to estimates, the region holds 13% of undiscovered oil reserves and 30% of gas reserves. One of the world's leading journalists, Cheryl Phillips, was in Athens as one of the keynote speakers of the Summer School of Computational Journalism and Artificial Intelligence. Phillips is a professor at the prestigious Stanford University in the United States, as well as the founder of the Computational Journalism Lab and the Big Local News Initiative. However, she prefers to identify herself only as a journalist, having won the prestigious Pulitzer Prize in 2025, as well as in previous years for her journalistic work. Once a journalist, always a journalist, she commented, speaking to Euronews, both about her recent award and what it signifies for the role of journalism in the present as well as in the future.
This year, I was part of a collaborative effort which involved 9 local news organizations, the New York Times and Big Local News, which I run out of Stanford University. And I think the thing that is notable to me is I've actually been lucky enough to have been a part of a few other Pulitzers in the past, but this one was a true collaboration among local newsrooms, and I think that's where we see the power in local journalism, if we can work together to find unique stories out of one set of information or data for our local communities, because that's where we'll find impact. And I think that's what the Pulitzer jury was awarding. I think local news is imperative, it's critical, and AI is, like anything computerized, is only as good as the information that is put in. And while there are a lot of AI models and you can use AI tools for good, in terms of being able to process and put out information, if you don't have local journalists, you're not going to have good information.
But what does AI mean for Phillips? Euronews asked her whether it is a blessing or a curse for the industry and what challenges it brings in the new age of journalism.
Both. I think it's for the better and for the worse, and I think that's true of any new tool. We can find good ways to use it and bad ways to use it, and so we have to be vigilant and make sure that we're using it toward the good. So I think the challenges for journalists is, one, to make sure that they're keeping the human involved in the AI loop, as they say, because otherwise we'll end up with misinformation, and we have to be very careful about that. And the other challenge for journalists is learning to use AI effectively so that they can scale up what they are doing and have greater impact.
Finally, when asked about what advice she would give to the audience journalists are addressing, whether readers, listeners, or viewers, Cheryl Phillips replied the following.
I think that readers need to also become familiar with what AI can do for them, and to also be skeptical. So there's a saying in journalism that if your mother says she loves you, you should check it out. And I think if AI says something that is true, you should check it out.
in Europe is the price of chocolate increasing the most? Driven by a poor harvest in Ghana and Ivory Coast, the world's largest producers of cocoa, the price of chocolate has surged globally over the past year. Across Europe and on average, prices were 21.1% higher in May 2025 than a year earlier. But what European country has seen the price of chocolate increase the most? It was Poland. The country reported a 39.1% increase as of May 2025 compared to the previous year. Other countries reporting notable price hikes include Estonia at 37.9%, Lithuania at 36.5%, Latvia at 33.2%, Sweden at 28%, and Finland at 26%. Price increases were less severe, however, in Luxembourg at 5.2%, Cyprus at 9%, Italy at 12%, Malta at 12.2%, and Austria at 13.4%. Cocoa, which used to trade for between €2,000 and €3,000 a ton, hit as high as around €13,000 a ton for a period. Analysts expect its price to remain at around €9,000 by the end of the year.